know when their project doesn't
That'd be sick.
so they don't
Yeah.
feel bad.
All right, hey everyone. We're gonna go ahead and get started with our industry panel. For those of you just trickling in, take a seat. Keep in mind we will be doing a audience Q&A at the end of this, so just think of any questions, and if we have a little bit of time at the end, you'll definitely get the chance to ask them. So to start out, hi, my name is Sam. I'm the president of Triton Gaming currently. I'm a third year here at UCSD. And Alex, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Alex. I am also a third year here at UCSD, and I am a live events officer at Triton Gaming.
Yeah, so if we could have all of the panelists introduce themselves, your name, your pronouns, your position, and just a very brief description of what you do.
Okay, I can start. So hi, I'm Christine Fan. My pronouns are she, they. I am the EDU program manager at MSI, which basically means I handle all K through 12 and collegiate esports for the nation for MSI. And that includes school partnerships, event sponsorships, and community management for the student server.
Hi, everyone. My name is Eugenia Yoon. I'm the Senior Education Partnerships Manager at Gen G. I go by she, her, and I've been in the collegiate esports space for about 6 years now, helping students to develop their careers in STEM.
What's going on, everybody? My name is also Alex, Alex Wexler, or Alex Wex, since we have a lot of Alexes at our company. And I work at 100 Thieves as an executive producer. My pronouns are he, him. And basically what I do is I produce the majority of the content on our core channel, which means our YouTube page. And that includes content house style videos or our podcast initiative, which we've done a couple of podcasts in the past.
Okay. Hi, I'm Karen Wynn. So a little bit out of the field with gaming, but I founded and created the first hentai convention in America. And right now I'm starting a new 18 plus anime convention in Las Vegas, starting for March 31st, April 2nd next year. So yeah.
Awesome. So if we want to go ahead with our first question.
Yeah, so this is a question for everybody. We can start closest to me and then work our way down. What is the most exciting thing about working in or close to the gaming industry? And what are the best and worst parts?
What I like best is being able to sponsor student events and kind of meeting everyone. I think collegiate sports, everyone's like super enthusiastic and really passionate about building communities, and I really love that. On the flip side, something that I don't like is the fact that students and volunteers in general don't get paid for the work that they do. I guess industry-wise, yeah, pay is not fun, but yeah.
I think my favorite part of being in the gaming industry is that it doesn't matter what you play. Just by inherently being a gamer, you have something in common with everyone. You can toss out words like MapleStory or Counter-Strike and immediately have something in common with everyone, which is a really incredible feeling. But on the flip side of that, similar to what you said, I think a lot of people are taken advantage of, and that the most unfortunate part is that you have to know someone if you want to work in the industry. You have to network and you have to put yourself out there, and that's not really how the outside world operates. I think that's probably the worst part of being in the gaming industry.
Yeah, I mean, some of my favorite parts about working in the esports gaming industry is just like personally, as being a huge fan of games, to be around a bunch of other people who have the same likes and to be part of an industry that's really on the rise right now and becoming a bigger part of the zeitgeist. I think that's pretty incredible and makes me feel very assured about the future of gaming. And I would say probably the hardest thing to deal with especially when you're working in the esports. When I'm doing content with esports players, I develop a lot of great relationships with them. And as it is with any type of sport, sometimes people get dropped or people get traded. So it's really hard when you've developed this connection and then, they have to move on to another team. So that's just a part of the job, but definitely the most difficult part to deal with for me.
I think my favorite thing about the convention anime gaming industry that I like is just the community that's been developed and how it's expanded over time. I deal with a lot of, more of like the maturity 18 plus stuff, and to watch anime and gaming grow is really cool. But to see adults come together and be okay and tolerate, or at least like celebrate what mature elements in gaming or anime or whatever is, it's really, really cool, especially for women. That's like my part of the reason why I made HentaiCon wasn't for like perverts or for men. It was so women could be more comfortable in going and feel more comfortable talking about the things that they like. I think a bad thing, or a thing I don't enjoy, is when I have to deal with trying to be as open-minded as and inclusive to everybody, but then, how do we get rid of the predators? I don't know if anyone here has ever gone in an anime community, but there's a lot of predators, and so it's very, very hard to keep those people out. So yeah, that's a hard part.
Awesome. Thank you all. So our next question is, what made you decide to join the company that you work for? How did you get into your company, and what do you really like about it? Was esports and gaming or other fields, was that always something you wanted to be a part of, or what path did you take to get you there?
For me, esports was something I didn't really consider until midway into college. Being an Asian girl from California, you have parents who have very specific expectations of like, you should get a STEM degree, you should be a doctor. If you're not a doctor, you're a failure. Um, but then after joining Triton Gaming during college and meeting a lot of my upperclassmen who eventually graduated and got jobs at like Blizzard, Riot, companies like that, I realized that, esports was a viable career option for me. And so, I decided to go after it. I joined NVIDIA GeForce Student as a student ambassador. I worked that for a few years. And then after I graduated, from UCSD in 2020, I did a little bit of freelance and I networked at a lot of collegiate events. And eventually I was able to get referred to MSI for a sales coordinator position. And then I worked that for a few months and then moved my way up into EDU program management. Did I answer the question?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And I mean, so I've wanted to be a marine biologist since I was 5. Went to Boston University, got my marine science degree, wrote my first paper on elasmobranchs, which are, sharks, rays, and skates. Super exciting work. But throughout that whole time, I had been competing in esports events. I'd been hosting them for my local community, and I had been volunteering with different orgs and building a collegiate infrastructure. And when I graduated, I realized I could help a lot of people by doing this before going to get my master's. And many, many, many years later, I'm still doing this work. Before joining Gen G, I took a couple of months off. Actually, I took 9 months off work to really focus in on where I could make the most impact. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with Gen G, we're a global esports team. We compete in Overwatch League, Valorant, League of Legends, PUBG, and more. And I wanted to find a company that had a lot of brand alignment with helping students where they are and helping them scale into whatever career they wanted to be, especially if they wanted to be in the gaming industry. And I joined right on in when I heard that they were opening up more collegiate programs and more middle school programs, because I think infrastructure doesn't just start at the college level, it actually starts at the interest level and scales into careers. So super excited about the work that we're doing at Gen G.
So before I got to 100 Thieves, I worked about 5 years on a channel called React, or Fine Brothers Entertainment. And for the latter years there, I was a part of the community team. And one of the big things that we did was start working on Twitch and making Twitch streams. And a lot of that came because I have been streaming for about 4 years, and that really got me imbued into the esports community. I was aware of it, but I wasn't like totally into it. Like I didn't know everything about it, and I just fell in love with that. I really fell in love with that. And so eventually at the time I was freelance producing, and one of the things that I think these panelists and everybody else is going to tell you about is like connections. Like connections are one of, if not the biggest thing. And I had a connection. Actually, it was my one of my girlfriend's best friend. He had landed a job at 100 Thieves, and they were looking for somebody to start up their content house and podcast pipeline. And I just jumped at the opportunity. Like I was a big fan of Nade Shot. I was a big fan of the company itself, the style, the way they approach gaming and content. Kind of fit everything that I was looking for. So luckily, nailed the interview, got in there, and absolutely loved it. And I think the big thing that 100 Thieves has done amazing with me is allowing me to grow creatively. There have been a lot of great ideas that have done amazing. There have been a lot of terrible ideas that did terribly that I did, but I was given that canvas to really grow as a producer. As I started off as a producer, senior producer, and now executive producer, and it's allowed me to feel so much more connected to my work. Whereas on other jobs, I would feel a little disassociated, more just like I just want to get this thing over with and just move on. Here, I am fully in on every project that I work on, and they allow me to do that.
How I got into my career was kind of rocky. It definitely wasn't like straightforward. I actually all throughout primary school used to host like events for students and for friends, and I was always into gaming, always into anime, always into hentai in middle school. Just didn't tell anybody. Wasn't vocal about it until high school and college, but I was always that girl that did not care. Like I was wearing Faku shirts in high school. So I always knew that I wanted to do a hentai convention. I just thought, okay, maybe like in my 30s, like, you know, as like I'll save money and start it on my own. So I actually went to UC Riverside for a medical biology degree. I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be a dermatologist specifically. And then when I was at UCR, I ran Cosplay Brigade, which is like a cosplay organization. We ended up starting our own like geek convention called Geek On. And that ran for like 3 to 4 years. And after doing that kind of stuff, I realized, okay, I really like operations. I really like creating these events. I even hosted parties back in my days. Like it was a fun thing for me to do. And then I started volunteering at conventions like Anime Expo, Fanime, Anime Los Angeles. All of those conventions, met the right people, connections, talked to the right people, got really lucky, and a group of people were like, here's money, let's do your idea. Like, let's do Hentai Con. And I was like, oh shit. Okay, so that's how I got to where I am.
Yeah, awesome. So for our next question, we can flip it up. So starting furthest and then working down towards me. What does your average day look like?
For convention running, like the first 3 months of planning, like if you're a year away, it's not really, I mean, like it's just finishing the marketing and stuff like that, deciding what the budget is. A lot of the people on my board, I don't know if anyone knows, like Kim from Senpai Squad, or the owner of Senpai Squad. He's one of my investors. We all live, you know, in separate places. This is all remote work. So like the first 6 months of a convention beforehand is a lot of like remote meetings and just discussing the budget and what we're going to pay, and like getting guest of honor contracts done, or the lineup, DJ lineup sets, like all that has to be set up. It's the like 3 months before the con where it's like crazy. And a lot of my work goes into like making, like prepping and making sure all the contracts are signed and all the flights are booked and coordination and everything. So I guess the first 75% is like casual, like not, you know, every day. It's not even my main career. This is like a side career for me. or like my second career, my main career is in hospitality, which helps in convention running. So I actually work for Marriott, and then my side hustle is convention running. So I guess everyday basis is like me doing my main career, and then on the side, like after all my work is done, I do everything else. Yeah.
Yeah, so my day to day is, I mean, every day is pretty different. So I guess I'll break it up into two types of days that I run into the most. So, non shooting days, I have meetings, first meeting with pretty much the heads of all the departments, just to kind of talk about what's going on for that week, for that day, make sure everybody's on the same page. Then I get into a producer's development meeting. This is where we flesh out ideas for the future of what we're shooting. We talk to the marketing department about certain projects that they may need our assistance on, whether it's coming up with treatments for them or whatnot. And then usually during the other parts of the day, I'm either looking at cuts for videos that are coming out, or I'm working on creative for a shoot. Then shoot days, the way they kind of work is we go either to the content house or we go to our compound where we work and split it up. We usually like to do maybe like 3 videos per day or so. And we just kind of power through those videos. My big thing, which we might be talking about a little bit later, is especially if you're going into producing and you're working on a lot of on-set stuff, it's always smart to book extra time. So obviously things might go wrong. Talent may, for the most part, show up late. Making sure that you have that extra time is not only good for protecting you and your crew, but also it helps for the talent that comes on, that when you finish early, which for the most part that happens because we have so much extra time, they have that feeling of, oh man, this crew, man, they're amazing. We got out 2 hours early and they're excited to come into the next shoot. So there's a lot of like little things that I try to maneuver around to make sure that everybody's kind of on the same page, that we shoot what we want, and that everybody comes out happy.
Yeah, I also similarly start off with my operation days. So creating campaigns, organizing all of our talent, doing contracts, paying out invoices. But then I have 2 other functions that I think are a little bit more fun. I have my teaching days where with our education partners, we're actually teaching core curriculum on how to get into esports careers, or what does an event sponsorship deck look like, even down to the middle school level, social emotional learning, and working directly with students and helping elevate their skill sets. And then we also have student success days, which is working on elevating individuals. So I work with club leaders like Sam and hosting their events and teaching them different valuable skills about, hey, here's how to talk in a corporate speak. Here are some event top tips, right? Because we get to host campaigns over at PAX or at other large trade shows. So I get to work directly hand in hand with students. Any of you are always welcome to come to those sessions. We have them available in our Tiger Nation Discord. You can also ask me any questions after this panel. But I think the student success days are the most fun. It's where I get to help individuals with their careers.
So my days are pretty routine. I'll sit in on anywhere from 1 to 4 sales calls with different school districts, universities, individual schools. I work with a sales team, so they make a sale to a school, and then some schools they want to build partnerships. So I handle all that stuff, making sure schools know that we provide event sponsorships for anything that they run for their students, marketing stuff, swag, all that. And then besides that, I will also, since I do community management for the MSI student server, I'll usually plan month-long campaigns and activities for students to do. And part of that is also developing a student ambassador program. This is the beta year this year, so I get to choose 4 students. We pay them $500 a month. It's all about, personal professional development, making sure students get the experience that they need, while also being supported financially. And then besides that, I'll also review event sponsorship decks from various clubs like Triton Gaming, and also handle basically the marketing and event sponsorship, shipping, paperwork, stuff like that. And that's my typical day. Yeah.
Awesome. So obviously esports and adjacent industries, they're very new, right? And obviously not everybody knows what goes into them, but there's some things that we could expect, right? And you guys just detailed what your day-to-day looks like. On the flip side of that, is there anything people wouldn't expect to be doing in your position that you do in your position? Are there any outlandish or somewhat weird things you find yourself doing that maybe people don't know about? And we can start from furthest to closest.
Outlandish. I guess it's not really outlandish. I guess it's like a fun part of the job. Is just um, I don't advocate partying, but that's really how you make connections. Like, I mean, I'm being honest here. Like, a lot of the connections I made were at like BlizzCon industry parties, Anime Expo after parties, because Faku did an after party. Um, it's crazy because like everybody in the gaming and anime and whatever comic industry, like if we're all adults, like we all party, and that's a thing. But like back in the day, like everyone thought like people who liked anime and all that stuff, like we were just nerdy and like didn't do any of that or didn't know how to socialize, but a lot of us do. So my job, a lot of it has to do with like networking, and that is done mostly at parties. So yeah, I guess it's a fun thing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the same things for me, like networking, like going out for drinks. If you're of age, if you're of age, just ways of like networking with people. There's definitely a lot of that. I know that's probably something that's just been hammered into you guys over and over again, but I can't stress how important it is to developing those connections. And I guess the other thing, just to give a different take, is just like the individual projects that you're working on. So like for me, I work on a lot of YouTube videos, challenge style videos. So some of the stuff that I have to do can be a little weird. If we're doing like a spicy pepper challenge thing, I'm going to try the spicy pepper to make sure I don't kill our talent. So there's little things like that, but those are fun. Like they're fun things to do. It's not exactly what you would think. Oh, the producer actually, they have to actually taste that thing, or they actually have to do that thing. It's because you want to kind of figure out what's going to happen if it goes well and what happens if it doesn't go well. You want to prepare yourself for any sort of situation when it comes to filming with your creators.
To give a very different take, I work with people as young as middle schoolers all the way through new graduates. And a lot of what I do, I'd say, is called people management. I host something called office hours, and there's a lot of social emotional learning that goes into that. It's not uncommon for Jack and Jill to be running a gaming club together, and then they begin to date. They spend so much time together, but then they break up. And hey, how come Jack and Jill, your sponsorship deliverables didn't come in for this month? Oh, we broke up. Jack was mean to Jill, and Jill broke up with Jack, and we're not going to do that anymore together. You're going to have to find someone else. Or middle schoolers, they literally throw punches at each other, and they're supposed to be working on a project together. How do you handle that and get them to sit down together calmly to talk through their feelings? I'd say that's the most outlandish thing that I have to deal with fairly regularly.
I think for me, um, I would do work a pretty typical corporate job, I think. The most outlandish thing really is the fact that our sales system runs on Internet Explorer. Before that, our server ran on Windows Server 2000 until Microsoft actually just kicked us off it because they were shutting down the service, which is the only time we were forced to upgrade. So most of my paperwork, if it's not on actual paper, it's on Internet Explorer.
All right, following back a little bit, I have to ask Alex, what's the weirdest thing you've had to do for a video?
Ooh, let's see. Testing out. I think the weirdest one was kind of dunking myself in like a pool of beans.
Nice.
What
Had to
kind
see
of
how
beans?
it felt. You know, make sure it was all good. It went well. It went well.
That's good to hear. I guess to also just jump back to Eugenia. So Eugenia, you talked about how you deal with all sorts of age ranges and that sort of stuff. What's been something really rewarding about working with kids, and what's been something that's been a little bit challenging?
I mean, it's so rewarding seeing people that I work with at the middle school, high school level graduate in college and then enter the workforce, and to feel really proud of the work that they did at their community colleges. Um, it's really rewarding to see them working and gaining a career and being able to take care of themselves financially, because is that not why, you and I do the work
Yeah.
that we do? And I'd say that the challenge is that sometimes so much of it is about the connections that you make. And even if you have a really fantastic student, sometimes when they're in the Midwest and haven't been able to go to as many events, or if they had to work a full-time job and then did gaming on the side because they had to put food on the table, they might not have networked the right way and may not have been able to find a job in their dream field. I'd say that that's the saddest part sometimes, is that they could have done everything right to the best ability that they could have and still not landed that dream career. And I think that that's a little heartbreaking sometimes.
That's really, really insightful to hear. Thank you. To pass it on to Karen. So obviously you work in a very, very new territory, very new industry, which is something that is maybe a little controversial, but as you really nicely put it as well, there's something also very empowering about it. So what's been your like challenges with forging a new industry, and what's been the most rewarding parts?
The most challenging is convincing people that we're all not like gross. Like it's hard because like when HentaiCon was made, like it was the same weekend as BlizzCon. So we didn't expect that to happen. It just did. And so then we had to, find ways to still get people to attend our con. Miraculously, we ended up doing super, super well, like exceeded our projections. And then a lot of people from the people who attended BlizzCon ended up coming the last day as a joke. Like I heard a lot of attendees be like, "Oh, we're going, but just like for like content, it's funny." But then all the reviews and the responses I got, like especially from women, they said that it was the safest, best anime convention they've ever went to. So like convincing women or other, no gender, all genders to like come, all sexualities, like that's the hard part, is like making it seem like it's not, oh, like you're going to come to this convention that's going to be like 30 bajillion dudes and they're all going to like follow you or whatever. It wasn't like that at all. I got an overwhelming amount of like, everyone's so happy. And I think the rewarding part is seeing so many people who are scared to talk about that stuff or feel ashamed to talk about those things, find like a safe place to do that, and in an environment that is inclusive. And I don't know, I was really happy with the results. It was surprising. Yeah.
Awesome. So I have to pass it to Christine now. If you don't know, Christine was a Triton Gaming officer. She was an officer. Yeah, applause. She was an officer briefly while I was just entering university. So we worked together a little bit in the past. But Christine, I'd be curious to learn more about how your experience in working in collegiate event planning and event building has translated to your work now at MSI, and how similar or different it might be.
My opinion is that honestly, most esports is the same as collegiate esports. You just have to write way, way more emails and get way more approvals compared to, being at Trine Gaming. If I wanted to do something, I would just go do it. But MSI, if I want to go do something, I have to go email my manager, I have to email marketing and be like, can I do this? Will corporate HQ in Taiwan be mad at me if I do this? Usually the answer is if they don't know, then it's fine. um, And so honestly, being a part of collegiate sports really helped me a lot. Um, you know, it is the reason why I realized that esports was a viable career, is just being in the space, seeing other people before me succeed, realizing I could do it myself, and then also help lift people up as I climbed. Um, so yeah, a lot of times people think, oh, I'm not getting paid for this work. It's kind of whatever, it's just grassroots. But really, that experience is so valuable because it's practical work. You're practicing for the time when you reach a level and you can actually get paid for that work. So I really cherish my time at Triton Gaming, and part of my mission at MSI is really just being able to support clubs like this and support students who also want to break into gaming.
Yeah, that's really inspiring. I want to pass it over to Alex. Or over Alex.
Good name. Good name.
Uh, what is the most important thing for a producer to focus on while shooting?
Man, it's a pretty multi-layered answer just because the producer is that person who kind of makes sure everything on the boat is running correctly. Uh, Especially on a shoot, I'm making sure that one, making sure everybody has their lunch orders in. Two, um, downloading the crew about what's going on that day, what we're planning to shoot, angles, which side of this room is better to shoot with. I'm talking to talent to also let them know, because even though we send out an email beforehand or the night before, most of the time they haven't looked at it. They're busy people. So we also download them on what's going on that day. And then once that's done, we kind of just bring everything together. And in this type of role, you're also playing director as well. So you're running the video. I have to know exactly what's going on, make sure that I know if something goes wrong, that I have a solution for that. You're basically A, B, Cing to make sure that everything goes smooth. And once that all kind of comes together, that's how you get like a perfect production and everybody comes out happy and excited for the next video. And that's always great because you always want people in high spirits. So that's always a big part as well is, patting people on the back and basically saying, thank you so much. After every single shoot, I go up to every one of my shooters and tell them, hey, great job, awesome job today. Even if it was a tough shoot, you just try to stay positive. Because the one thing is, if they see the producer and maybe things aren't going wrong, like I just had a shoot where, things kind of went like we got through it, but like things were a little bit shaky because like certain things didn't work. I kept as positive as possible because if they see that their producer is kind of like, oh man, this isn't working or blah, 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 it's gonna bleed into everyone else. So you keep positive with every pitfall that comes, you're gonna have a positive outcome. So that's like the big thing is just to, make sure everybody's feeling good and make sure that the plan that you set in is there along with B's and C's.
Yeah, that's really good advice, not just for the gaming industry, but just in general,
Yeah.
keeping positive. Uh, in that vein, we kind of want to ask everybody, what advice do you have for students who want to go into the gaming or an adjacent industry? And we can start closest and move down.
My advice is if you want to do something, you should just do it. Um, Before you enter the workforce, this is a prime time to get as much experience as you can and try different things. Think about where your strengths lie, what you might want to do for a long period of time. Being a college student, you have that pressure of like, this is something I'm gonna do for the rest of my life. Right? So, making sure you have a wide experience, and understand, things that you like, things that you don't like. That's really important. And this is kind of classic UCSD CS advice, but start early and start often. Yeah. But when I was a UCSD student, I didn't really take that advice to heart, but now that I'm in the workforce, Yeah, you should start early and you should start often.
I love that because mine builds directly off of that. It's great to start early and start often, but make sure you also have an inner rationale for why you're starting at all. Is it to create great experiences for your friends, which is a very legitimate thing to want to do? Is it because you are trying to build your resume and have a portfolio of things you've worked on? That is also a very legitimate thing to do. Or just because you want to try new things for the sake of trying new things, just make sure you rationalize to yourself why you're doing something so you're getting the most value out of it based on what you're hoping to get in.
Yeah, I would say just really imbuing yourself in extracurricular activities that kind of pertain to what you're looking for in the gaming field. That's always a huge, huge part. Again, with making the connections there and then getting that experience. I think also personally for yourself, uh, any other way. So, like, for instance, if you're interested in streaming, go stream. Doesn't matter how many people are watching you or whatnot, as long as you're having a good time. If that's going to help you, if you feel like that's going to help you further your way into the industry, I think that's a great way. I think also another one which extends outside of gaming is just update your LinkedIn. Make sure to update your LinkedIn. Keep updating your LinkedIn because I see a lot of people who undervalue it. I undervalued it when I got in first, and I was like, oh, it's whatever. Like, I'll treat it like a social media. But it is a huge part of connections that I've made to other people in the gaming industry. I've had a lot of young people, UCSD, a lot of other college students who've reached out to me. And maybe I wasn't able to give them a job or whatnot, but I was able to give them direction. Reach out to those people in the industry that you feel like you want to learn from. They may not give you a job, but they're going to give you that experience that a lot of people aren't able to get, and you can do it. You just have to be proactive about it.
I think the best thing I could give as advice is it's okay to make mistakes, like it really is, and to change directions. Because when I was at UC Riverside, I spent 5 years there, and I'm a very determined person. So like once I start something, I don't give up, and that's a good thing and a bad thing because even when like the other career was staring straight into my face, and I was having more enjoyment and was way happier like coordinating events and doing all that stuff, I was just like, no, I'm going to be a doctor and I'm going to push it through and I'm going to get through fourth year and all this. And it wasn't until the very end that I was like, no, this is wrong. Like, I can't do this. I need to do what I'm passionate about. So it's not, don't be afraid to change your major 10 bajillion times. Because I really wish I would have followed that advice when I was in school. I was so scared. I think it's a pride thing. Like, oh, I don't want to give up. And, but medical biology is so different from what I'm doing now. So it was the pressure of like, I have, strict Asian parents, the stereotypical Asian parents. So the pressure of like pleasing them, and then so I was so afraid of being like, no, that's not something I want to do anymore. That was hard. But this is your life, at the end of the day. Like, they're not going to be around forever, so you have to do what makes you happy. And if that means it's gaming, that means forging a new industry that you don't know if it's going to work out or not, do it, because like you don't want to live with any regrets. Yeah.
Awesome. So before we get into sort of Q&A questions, a bit of a lighter, fun question for you all. So I know as gamers, we all kind of have our down the rabbit hole type of game, the game that really got you into gaming. For myself, it's Pokemon Ruby, as well as Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Really versatile there. But I'm just kind of curious for you all, what was the game that kind of got you down that sort of gaming esports rabbit hole, or and Karen, in your case, if you want to name a specific anime or piece of work that also got you
I
down the
love
rabbit
gaming.
hole.
I'm a big gamer, so I could name a game.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we'll start with Christine and we'll go down the line.
My first game as a child was Pokemon Emerald. So I've always, been a gamer. Didn't really consider consoles as like esports. What actually got me into esports was playing CS:GO in high school. I still play that game to this day. I have like 4,000 hours. Um, I really enjoy playing competitively and watching matches. I think if Valve would give esports any time of day, I think CS:GO would be one of the top, perhaps even beating out Valorant. Um, but yeah, that's my game.
Let it be known that all TG officers start with Pokemon.
Man, I think so. I've grown up around gaming. My mom was a huge gamer, so we always had consoles in the house. But the game that really got me addicted, the fake being sick to stay home to play games, the 2 a.m. towel under the door while you play games with your monitor on the lowest brightness setting, was Maple Story. I loved being able to make these global connections with people all over the world. I loved meeting other Korean people while living in Michigan and being able to learn the language. And just the game is just so goddamn cute. I've been on and off since it was literally released in Korea as a beta game. So I'm on Reboot. You guys can add me. And then I think in terms of the esports rabbit hole, I remember going to my first StarCraft LAN in Korea and thinking that was the coolest thing of all time. And that's really where I got my first esports dollars, is hosting StarCraft 2 tournaments and events and working at the GSL studio. And it is the greatest esports of all time. That's period.
Man, I think I'm about to show my age here. The one that really got me into gaming was probably the OG Sonic the Hedgehog. So my parents wouldn't let me get a console. I think my first handheld console was a Game Boy Color. My first console was a GameCube. My cousin had like NES, Sega Genesis, and I'd always like go downstairs when we would go visit them in the middle of the night, go pop on some Sonic the Hedgehog, and I just fell in love. Like my mom made me like this jacket that had like Sonic the Hedgehog painted on it. I was in love with Sonic the Hedgehog, so that was definitely a huge part of like my childhood and getting into gaming. The one that really got me into esports was probably Overwatch. You can ask my girlfriend. I play the hell out of that game. Too much. I think I have like 4,000 hours or something. But that really got me into it. At first, I was just playing it kind of normally and then competitively, and then OWL came up and I started watching that, and I was getting really interested, and that kind of expanded out into a lot of other things, including like League of Legends and CS:GO. And yeah, I think that's the one that really got me into esports. But yeah, Sonic the Hedgehog, that's my guy. That's my guy.
So the one game that like I was super obsessed with, same, I lost weight honestly because I wasn't eating. I wouldn't even go to the bathroom because I played so hard, was Maple Story. Like for years, like all my friends, we all had a guild. First, online boyfriend for 2 weeks, lasted 2 weeks on Maple Story. Don't know where he's at now. Hope he's fine. And then I would say for esports, League of Legends. I started playing freshman year, I think it was like 2011. And I never made it to even like bronze. Like I wasn't competitive, but I loved going to LCS. Like that was my thing. I tried to go to every single one, watched all the streaming, all the games. TSM was my favorite. Yeah, Cloud9, those were my favorites until they changed players and now there's no OG, but whatever. Yeah, so I got really into that. But now I just play Animal Crossing on my Switch. Yeah.
Awesome. Great to hear. All right. So we're going to take some audience questions. So if you have a question, just go ahead and raise your hand and then I'll call on you. I'll get you right here in the front.
I can start with some mental fortitude advice. It's a numbers game. It really is. Most people apply to, this is a little bit different for CS majors because you have so much practicum and portfolio building that you do during your CS programs. But in general, you need to apply to 100 jobs before you hear back from 10 of them. Of those 10, 8 are going to be your auto rejections, right? So that leaves you with 2. And up to that point, that's just a screener call, right? They're going to ask you, hey, we'd like to talk to you about your experience and whether or not you're eligible to work in the United States. And from there, it's up to you to land the job. And so, really, you need to think about that when you're applying to jobs. It can be really disheartening to just throw darts at a wall and apply to things, but part of it really is a numbers game. You're not only competing with other students from your school, but nationally and even internationally. So, don't get discouraged when you don't hear back from 80 to 90 of the jobs you apply to, or if the 8 first ones that you get are auto rejections of, hey, we've already filled the role, thank you for applying. But just remember that at some point you'll find alignment with a company and that they'll be rooting for you and you'll be rooting for them, and you're interviewing the same way that they're interviewing you, and that you get to make the decision that's right for you.
I would even add on for like mentally, like maybe once you get to that point or you do get to that job, it's another chapter of new things to deal with. The big ones, the 2 big ones that I've found is dealing with imposter syndrome. I deal with it every single day. And until I actually looked at it and figured out what is going wrong, why do I feel like the things that I've worked on that that have worked well and haven't worked well, why do I feel like, oh, it like, is somebody going to find me out or something, like I did something wrong? It's going to take time, but don't let yourself fall into that rut, because you will feel that a lot once you do land that job. And then secondly is knowing your worth. When I say knowing your worth is, so I think with all of us here and definitely me, like earlier in my career, I would let people take advantage of me because I felt like, oh, this was the only way to do something, like working way more hours than I should, or working on multiple projects, even though I'm supposed to be working on this one project. Knowing when to say no. And obviously, once you're first coming in, you're going to be doing a lot of, you're going to be doing a lot of work, a lot of grunt work and stuff. But at a certain point, you have to know when to say no, and knowing your worth and knowing when, hey, maybe this isn't the right place for me and I need to move on. Because a lot of times you'll get too comfortable at a place and you'll just stay there. And it's like, sure, it'll be fine. But to be able to expand yourself creatively, you have to know when to say no, when to move on. So maybe not something you'll apply right now, but definitely once you get to that point where you are in that first job, that question is going to come up, and just know that you're going to deal with that. It's just figuring out the right way to deal with that.
To add on to what Alex and Eugenia said, so I'm a more recent grad. To put in perspective, it took me about 6 months to find my first job in esports that actually, paid me real money. I applied a lot. Most of the time I didn't hear back. Sometimes I'd hear back months later and it'd be like auto rejection, and I'd be like, why even send me the email in the first place? So yeah, it is a numbers game. And also about the imposter syndrome. It's normal to doubt yourself. I think doubting yourself occasionally is actually a very healthy thing to do, because it shows that you have a hunger to improve yourself, and that no one is perfect. There's always room to improve. So when you're doubting yourself, that's kind of your internal way of showing that, like, you still know that you can improve. Also, something I learned about imposter syndrome is that it was a term coined by white psychologists to describe the feeling of being othered, specifically marginalized people who feel othered by the system, and just feeling like they don't belong because there are little microaggressions that show, like, oh, you don't fit in with the culture here, you didn't get that joke, you didn't get this or that because you came from an entirely different background. And that's completely normal. And it is something that I would like to combat with my program, is that you don't have to feel like an imposter because everyone belongs in gaming. Um, when you feel like an imposter, it's kind of you just being subject to the system saying you're not what we consider the default. But that's entirely untrue because there is no default, right? So I think, when you feel that internally, just bear in mind that it's not you, it's your reaction to the situation that you're in. Yeah, and that's my.
The convention running industry is very niche. It's not like I mean, it's sort of like a numbers game, but it has to get to like con chair and like being on the board is very, very difficult because it's really who you know and how many years of volunteer experience you've had. I'm gonna be honest, it's not like, oh, I'm making a like crap load of money from this. This is all like every con share. I swear to you, like if you ask them why you're doing this, it's all out of passion. We do it because we want to keep building the community. We want to keep creating like places for people to go to and make friends and buy anime merch or gaming merch or whatever. It's not for the money at all. When I did HentaiCon, it was all volunteer. I did that like no money. But people, I had 100% creative control. I got to do whatever I wanted, but I didn't make any money out of that. My second convention that I'm doing, thankfully, like because the fact that I did that first one, they're like, okay, we're gonna pay you a buttload of money. But a lot of like first, if you want to start your own convention, anime, gaming, comics, whatever, your first year, doubtful that you're gonna make money because you're either gonna start off as a nonprofit, which means like you have to balance it out, and at the end of the day, like you're not getting paid anything. It's all volunteer, or it's for profit, and your investors aren't going to see a return until maybe like third, fourth year max. So it's not an easy industry to get into. It's just out of like, if you're so passionate and like really into creating this community and these events for people, that's why we do it. I like it's hard, yeah, but I do it because I love seeing people happy, love seeing everybody have a good time. I've always been like that, a big people pleaser. Even when I was hosting parties, like that was my thing. I don't even drink anymore. I stopped in 2016. I just purely like seeing everybody have a good time. Yeah.
Awesome. Do we have any more audience questions? We'll take the guy in the third row, black jacket. You. Yes. Hat. Yes.
Hi, nice to meet you. Christine, you actually talked about this a second ago about the aspects of I guess one people in gaming and gaming adjacent fields. So I guess the question I have then is, as a minority, I'm of a Middle Eastern descent. Having looked at companies such as Activision Blizzard and Riot Games that have an incredibly they state that they are looking to be diverse, but they have approximately 1% ratio of people that are similar to me. I was a whole reading a news article about a riot and like maybe a dozen people who identify as black, for example. These are mega corporations, and so while I understand the sentiment of aspiring to not have negative experiences with marginalized, how do I prepare myself mentally if I'm trying to enter the industry as a non-binary Middle Eastern man? Sorry, I guess that's man, but later, right? So when I get into this situation, I feel like I'm kind of intimidated to even try to accept it. I guess rephrasing the question, make it more digestible, broadly, so I'll appreciate any insight here. How do I tackle what seems to be a pretty sizable mountain to navigate of trying to get myself feeling some semblance of inclusivity?
The first step would be to find your own community. It doesn't have to be within the company that you work at, but finding like-minded individuals across different companies, even within the company that you work at. They'll always be your strongest supporters. Dealing with sexism, racism, it's tough on your own, and having a support system to help you work through that mentally and emotionally really helps. Having people who understand what it's like. My opinion, for the gaming industry is that that stuff is everywhere. All companies will say that they care about diversity and inclusion. Not many actually follow through. It's a lot of just, we'll say this because people will accept it at face value and they won't follow up. Some salient stats is like a majority, I believe at Riot, they have 2% of their employees are Latino. And a majority of those are actually contractors who are not officially recognized by the company. And that happens a lot. Most marginalized people are never fully accepted into the companies that they work at, whether they're relegated to contract positions, lower titles, stuff like that. So it's kind of just realizing that when you go into a big company, that stuff is going to happen. In order to protect yourself, find a community within the company and outside the company that will support you. Realize that your life is not dedicated to the company, that you are there to gain experience, do work, get paid, and you know, don't treat it as the end all be all. A lot of companies, especially like Riot and Blizzard, will prey on your passion because they know that you have very emotional ties to the games that they make, and so they will exploit that passion, whether it's giving you a lower title, cutting your paycheck by 40%, doing all these little things that show that they don't actually value you. um, so just realize that it's going to happen. You need to find a support community and learn to advocate for yourself. Understand that you belong there. No one should ever, if anyone ever makes you feel excluded, it's typically because they're insecure about their own worth and they're projecting it onto you because they're jealous, a lot of times. And just realizing that you don't have to give any energy to that, because it's not worth your time. And realizing at some point, if you can't take it any longer, you can just leave. And always make sure that, you have an option to leave. Yeah.
I mean, first, I'm so sorry that you have to ask this question. Um, I think that in and of itself is a visual on how the system is broken and how there are failures for specific groups of people in the world, and services not being rendered to them. So again, I'm sorry that you have to even ask this question. Two, to speak specifically on the hiring portion, how do you as an individual get hired? You can make yourself undeniable. People always love to talk about how, oh, there's not that many women in the esports gaming space, but all of my gaming mentors for the last 15 years have been women. There were women like Kim Fawn who were running intense, amazing global esports programs like BlizzCon and went on to go form their own studio. Some of my favorite hosts, commentators, casters, like Gillyweed from the StarCraft 2 community, is now at Wisdom running her own production company as VP of Media. So for me, in my marginalized state, I knew that there were women I could look up to. And I can personally help introduce you to a couple people who I think share very similar, though not the same experience as yourself. And there are many mentors in the space who are happy to help. But make yourself undeniable to them. Make yourself an asset. Make sure that your resume, your portfolio is in the best shape of its life, that you are able to show exactly where you have driven revenues, where you have driven community growth, where you have driven impressions. Make yourself undeniable to them, because what does a business care about more than the bottom line, even beyond everything else? And perhaps most importantly, this is to point in the direction that the industry is moving, but many AAA studios, AAA doesn't stand for anything anymore, right? Think of the Among Us phenomenon. That was a handful of people who created a game together because they thought it would be fun. A lot of people are leaving big house studios to go form their indie studios and their own small title groups. And I think that there are a lot of really culturally diverse and welcoming communities like Second Dinner, which just announced their new Marvel game, where you can potentially find a home. And I think the AAA doesn't really mean anything anymore. I highly suggest you look at some of the smaller indie houses because they make great games.
Yeah, I mean, you guys explained it incredibly. I'm so sorry you have to go through this. For me personally, I've had to deal with it a couple of times in places that I've worked at before, where you feel like, you've worked so hard, and it goes to another person who has less experience than you. And to follow up on what they're saying is like definitely knowing your worth, like everything, like your LinkedIn, as I keep talking about, like the numbers, put them up there, like you helped grow this from this many views to this many views, or this many subscribers, this many, whatever you're doing, make yourself like the best candidate that they could ever hope to get. And I have no deniability that you'll be able to get those. You'll definitely go through a lot of like no's, 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 but there will be that one that is a yes, and they would be extremely lucky to have you.
I have a lot of friends who are also in gaming companies like I have a lot of female friends who, were in Riot, Blizz, and dealt with similar situations where like they were either dealt with discrimination or sexism and ended up leaving the company and going into smaller indie companies, and they're feeling, they're much, much happier where they're at. It's the same situation that's going on in anime industry. Like, if you know behind the scenes, a lot of convention chairs or the people running the conventions are old white people, like old white men specifically. Even like you talk about like sex industry in terms of like hentai companies and whatever, all older white men. So I, personally, like when I entered the scene, it was very difficult to convince people, like as like a 25-year-old Asian woman, like I know things too. Like I know exactly, like this is what I want to do, and I'm gonna prove everybody wrong. So it's kind of having that fortitude and making yourself undeniable, because a lot of the change doesn't happen like by you just waiting around. Like it sucks that you even have to do it, but like, and even in history, like the people who have made it easier for others, like they had to go through it themselves, like in terms of protesting or doing whatever it takes to change within. Like if you're working in a company, like protesting or doing whatever it takes to change the circumstances for everybody else after you. So it's not easy. It's so hard to deal with that kind of stuff. And it's a matter of like being strong, believing yourself, and never like doubting who you are and what you're about, and then having to climb that battle or that hill and proving everybody wrong. But the satisfaction in getting to that point is amazing. Amazing.
All right, thank you all for sharing, and thank you for your question. So unfortunately, that was a very detailed and thoughtful and very insightful question, which means we unfortunately don't have any more time for questions. However, I will say, I believe Christine will still continue to be at the MSI booth for a little bit longer, as well as Eugenio will be at the Gen G booth. So definitely feel free to stop by, ask them more questions throughout the convention. We are here till about 10 p.m., although I don't know how long they will specifically be tabling for. With that, we are going to do a little bit of a raffle for you guys. So we're going to be raffling off some of our sponsorship merch. So we have a little bit of Coca-Cola merch. We have some MSI merch. When we call your ticket, we unfortunately don't have the pricing here. Just come up, we'll get your info, and then we'll get that pricing to you ASAP. So I think we're going to draw two. So Alex, if you want to do the honors. He's shaking them in his hands.
Good luck, everybody.
All right, I will draw it. Amazing.
Okay, so these are the blue tickets that you got coming in. 252447.
Amazing.
Hey, let's
Nice.
go.
Yay!
All right, one more. All right, we have 252449. Amazing. Our very own Sean. Let's go. All righty. So that concludes our panel. Like I said, they're going to be here for a little bit longer, so definitely go check out their booths and ask them more questions. So yeah, thank you everyone. Thank you to our panelists for coming out.
Thank you.
Yeah.